Welcome back to another video on the Create mod, another tutorial, this one, andesite alloy and also iron. This machine here can produce 7,201 andesite alloy per hour and an additional 700 iron ingots. It uses 36,000 almost stress units and fits in a 7x7 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 area. Oh my god, I'm so good at making things squares. We have a bunch of different components in this, primarily our cobblestone generator that will then bring any cobblestone into our crushing wheels, turning it into gravel to wash it into iron and flint. The flint will be reused to craft andesite, while the iron will be used over here to make our andesite alloy and any extra iron ingots. You can see now iron being crushed or pressed into iron ingots, which means the whole thing is working great. It takes input from the backside here. I'm going to be going over how to set up the schematic and a block by block tutorial of this farm so that you can build it whichever way you'd prefer. I will say this does require an infinite source of lava. If you don't know how to get that, I'll put a time card in the top right of the screen now, but it is relatively straightforward and honestly not too difficult to do. You can obviously run this at lower speeds if you wish to save on stress units, but you will get less andesite alloy as output, but as you can see, it scales pretty linearly with the stress units being used. There will be chapters in the description and also on the video for all the parts that you may want to skip around to. I'm first going to start with setting up the schematic since that's a little bit quicker, and then we'll move on to the block by block tutorial. To start off with the schematic, I am going to just walk you through how to set it up. There are currently some issues with schematics and the Create mod if you're using a schematic cannon, so it may be easier just to build it with the block by block tutorial, but I'll show you how to do it anyway. I have already pasted this into my world, and once you have this in, it should look something like this. The first thing we're going to do is come up to the top here and deal with these volts. What we should see is that the first 3 volt blocks are connected, and then there's 2 others that are not connected, which is the opposite of what we're seeing here. In order to fix that, all we need to do is break that middle one and connect it up with the front 3. Then you should have 3 connected at the front and then 2 in the back, and we'll be good. We can then place in lava in 3 spots here next to these drills, and then they will flow outwards to fill in the rest of the gaps. We can also waterlog these drills over on the sides here, as well as over on the sides on the other side. Now that we have all the lava and waterlogging in, we may actually be good to power this. To power it, you're going to come into the back here and just place in whatever power source you're going for into your rotation speed controller. I already mentioned the number of stress units you need, so let's try to connect this up and see what's happening. So the first thing I notice is that things are going backwards. Every single belt, it looks like, for me, is going backwards. This will happen depending on the orientation with which you place the farm. If everything seems to be going backwards, just invert our rotation speed controller to the correct direction. Once that happens, you should eventually see cobblestone dropping out onto this belt, coming up here and going into this andesite funnel, which brings it into a chute and brass funnel. You should then see gravel being dropped down and being pushed over here. You can see that's just normal air, and that's not going to wash our gravel at all. So we need to waterlog this slab here, the one with the trapdoor in the way of, and then we can flip that trapdoor back up. Once we do that, we can see the gravel is being washed, and eventually we'll get flint and iron ingots in this vault. Once we get iron ingots in there, we should, once we get to a full stack, see this dropped out onto this belt, which will then go down the line there. There we go. That seems to be working, and it is already getting mixed into andesite alloy. The one other thing that we need to do is come into the middle here and place in a lava source in this cauldron. We also need to just quickly check this threshold switch. It should look something like this, but it should actually have been set to something much higher. So let's see. No, what is going on? Well, let's try to break and replace this threshold switch. Bro, something broke. Okay, it seems to be something bugged with my threshold switch. That's honestly fine. I'm hoping this won't happen for you. I don't know why this is happening for me, but it seems to be on Eddy inventory. It starts bugging out. Well, no worries. You can set this to make sure the top is depowered here and the bottom is powered. Bump this up to 40 stacks and this one to 30 if you're able to. Otherwise, honestly, 3 and 2 stacks is probably fine. Oh, one other thing that I missed for setting up the schematic, make sure you come over to here and right click this side of the basin of iron ingots with a wrench so that the funnel now drops off over on this side. And with that, we have our machine now set up. Now let's get started with the block by block tutorial. You're going to want to lay out a 7x7 by 7 blocks tall area. And for me, the base of the farm is going to be where this shaft block is here. So if you want this flush with the floor, make sure you build it in the floor itself. I am not going to be doing that just to show you that it is in fact 7 blocks tall without needing the floor. We're going to start with the belts on the base level here. So to do that, we're going to place in a shaft here, another one 2 blocks away from it and connect both of those with a belt like so. In the middle of this belt, we're going to right click in a shaft and then place 2 more here, go 2 blocks separating and place in another shaft, connect both of those with a belt. We're then going to place a shaft sideways that goes all the way to the edge of our 7x7 area over here and connect this with a belt as well. At the end of this middle belt here, we're going to place a depot to prevent our items from just flowing off into the stratosphere. And then over on this side, we're going to place in a gearbox to connect both of these belts together. Next, we're going to come over to the front right side of the farm and place in 2 cogwheels like so, and put andesite casings around both of them. Then on the left side of this andesite encased cogwheel, we're going to place in another cogwheel that is connected up to this belt, which currently it isn't, so we have to right click in a shaft there, and then you can see those then connect. Above this cogwheel, we're going to place in another cogwheel so that those kind of connect. And then over on the right side of this cogwheel, we're going to place in a mechanical pump. Make sure you right click it so the arrow here is facing towards the belt. On the other side of this pump, we're going to place in a pipe here. This will eventually be used for our andesite crafting that you can see there, but currently we're not going to get in the basin. After that, we're going to start on our cobblestone routing system. So we're going to place in a gearbox connected to this cogwheel that we kind of just placed, and then a shaft connected to the gearbox. We're going to place a shaft next to it, connect those with a belt, and then extend it by 1 just by right clicking on it with another belt. We're then going to place in 2 shafts diagonally upward from each other, and that is going to go into another shaft, 1 next to it, and connect those with a belt there. On both sides of this belt shaft, we are going to place in 2 gearboxes, and those are going to be used to power our crushing wheels once we get to that point. After that, we can get in part of our fan system. So to do this, we're going to place in a half slab, a bottom half slab there, and 1 behind it. Then on this gearbox here, we're going to place in a vertical gearbox, and on the other side of the shaft, we're placing in a trapdoor. This one is going to be waterlogged, so the trapdoor is just so that water doesn't flow out. You could technically use a full block, and it doesn't matter what trapdoor you use if you decide to use a trapdoor. On the back of this slab block, we're going to place in an encased fan, and then behind the encased fan, we're placing in a gearbox. I was actually wrong about one little thing here. We're not going to be placing in a gearbox here, so you can break that. Instead, we're going to place in 2 encased chain drives that should connect up our vertical gearbox here to our belt system here, and it'll have the bonus of still being able to connect to our crushing wheels. We're then going to place in just a bunch more gearboxes. So the first one is going to go here on this encased chain drive to connect it up to this gearbox, and then we're going to do a vertical gearbox over on this side here, and then another vertical gearbox over here, and then 1 more final one right there. Now we can move on to our cobblestone generator. So we're going to place in 2 smart chutes here with item volts on top of them. So the first one is going to be a 2 wide item volt, and then the next one is going to be 3 wide. So we're placing in 5 total, and then you just want to make sure that the front 3 here are connected and over this smart chute, and the back 2 are connected over this smart chute. Then we can hold and right click the smart chute on that filter thing and set them both to the exact amount of 64. This will just make it so that a stack of cobblestone falls out each time, since that is a little bit quicker on the crushing wheels. On both sides of this item vault, we're going to place in andesite funnels facing inwards towards it. Make sure the arrow faces inwards. You can shift right click on an item or thing to make the arrow go into it. If you normal right click, it'll go out. If it is going out, you can just right click it with a wrench and then it'll invert that arrow. So make sure you do that on both sides here as we're going along, and you should have something that looks like this. I'm actually going to change this up slightly just so that we don't run into any issues in the future, but we're going to break the front 3 andesite funnels on the left hand side and replace them with brass funnels with the filter set to cobblestone. This is used so that we can drop out our iron nuggets onto this belt where our funnels are without the funnels picking them up and putting them in the item vault and causing a whole dilemma. After that, let's come over to the front of the item vault and place in a trapdoor here. I'm going to flip it upward. This trapdoor is just used so that the lava doesn't fall out on either side, so you could do a full block as long as it's non-flammable. We're then going to place in cobblestone directly above all of the funnels here, and make sure you do that on both sides. And then on the sides of this cobblestone, we're going to place in drills, behind the drills encased chain drives. Once you get to the end of the encased chain drive, we're actually going to place one in vertically like so that they're still connected but rotated 90 degrees pretty much. We're going to do mechanical drills on the other side as well with encased chain drives connecting to them, and still we're going to do that upward kind of encased chain drive technique. That is because above and below it, we're going to do stuff. So below it, we're going to place in another encased chain drive and rotate it 90 degrees again. And then above it, we're going to do encased chain drives all the way across until it connects up with the other vertical one. On tops of these cobblestone blocks, we're going to place in 5 more drills on either side. And then on top of those, we're going to place in more encased chain drives. Though in those encased chain drives that we just placed, we should extend to connect up with these encased chain drives. And you should have something that looks like this, a bunch of encased chain drives, and it looks so ugly. But what can you do? Once our cobblestone generator is in, let's get in our kind of processing systems. So the first thing we're going to do is place in a 3x3 item vault, and we're going to start this one off of the ground, so it looks something like this. On the back middle side of our item vault, directly above this encased cogwheel, we are going to place in a funnel, and we're going to grab a list filter and set it to flint and iron nuggets, allow and ignore data. We can then put this in the filter slot of the funnel, and that'll only pick up flint and iron nuggets once the gravel has been washed. And as a reminder, this funnel should be facing inward towards the item vault. Next to this funnel, we're going to place in a flint funnel here. So just set the filter to flint. And then we're going to place a cauldron with lava in it right below it. We're going to place a threshold switch directly above it. And for some reason, my threshold switches are broken, so I can't change it. But you should set this to 40 stacks up here, 30 stacks here, and invert the signal so that the bottom is powered on. That will make it so that this funnel won't drop out flint when we don't have any flint to have it drop out. You're then going to need to hook up your infinite lava source to this mechanical pump. I'm going to be using a creative fluid tank with lava in it, but unfortunately you probably won't be able to do that. Instead, I would recommend checking out my video on how to get infinite lava that I linked at the beginning of the video and also is in the description, because that has helped a ton. Then we can get in our andesite crafting system. So first we're going to place in a basin directly above this fluid pipe, and we're going to set the filter to andesite. Directly above our basin here, we're going to place in a mechanical press, rotate it so that the shaft is facing forwards and backwards and set it to the side. Then on the top left of the item vault, when you're looking at it from behind, we're going to place in another brass funnel with the filter set to flint, a depot directly below it, and then another brass funnel dropping from the depot into our basin here. We're then going to get in our andesite alloy crafting system. So first we're going to place in two basins next to each other and set the filter to andesite alloy. On the left side of both of these basins, we're going to place in one more basin with the filter set to iron ingots. On the right side of our two andesite alloy basins, we're going to shift right click in two andesite funnels so that the arrow is facing in towards them. We're then going to go diagonally above it over to this item vault here and place in an item drain, a brass funnel going out onto the item drain with the filter set to iron nuggets. And then we're going to get in a shaft going all the way over here. So 1, 2, 3 blocks away. And then we're going to have a depot ended off. So it should be perfectly in line with our brass funnels with the cobble filter. We're then going to get in some brass funnels, dropping items out into our basins here. And then we're going to place in 3 things here. So the first one is going to be a mechanical press over the iron ingots. And then we need 2 mixers over both of the andesite alloys. To power our mixers, we're going to extend our encased chain drive here into a vertical one that is connected with 2 cogwheels up to our mechanical mixers. You can put this in either direction, so sideways or like this, it'll work just the same. To connect up to our mechanical press, we're going to place in 2 shafts to connect it up to the encased chain drive system we built earlier. To connect up our mechanical press over on this side, we're going to place in a shaft all the way along so that it connects up there, and then we can probably finally place in our crushing wheels. So the first 2 are going to go next to each other like so. They should all be connected with a shaft up to this encased chain drive. The next 2 we're connecting up to this gearbox and should also be connected and in line with the other crushing wheels. We're on the home stretch, but we're not quite done. The next thing we need to do is prevent stuff from flowing out in all of its orifices. This includes water and lava, but let's start with lava. So we're going to place in another framed glass trapdoor on the back side here to prevent any lava from flowing out this way. We're going to place in a trapdoor here to prevent water from flowing out that way, and the same over on the other side near the front to prevent water from flowing out here. Same is true here, and over on the back side for this one right there. We then need to place in some stuff to have the crushing wheels crush anything. So the first thing we're going to put in is a smart chute going down into our first set of crushing wheels, and then a brass funnel facing outward. You can see the arrow there, facing outward to drop items out into our second set of crushing wheels. To bring items from this belt onto the smart chute, we're going to place in an andesite belt funnel, and that'll have it going in. I do think that just leaves these 2 drill spots, which are a little bit difficult to get to, but you can squeeze through and reach them from there. And we just want to place in trapdoors there to prevent any water from flowing down, because it gets a little bit annoying. Once we have that, we should be able to waterlog everything. So the first thing we're waterlogging is this stone slab right here, right in the way of the oak trapdoor. I'm going to flip that up. You don't technically need to. It just looks a little bit better. We're then going to waterlog all of these drills up at the top here. And on the other side as well, you should see that no water is flowing out anywhere. If that's the case, then you've done it right so far. We can then place in 3 lava sources all through the middle here. You honestly can probably get rid of the middle one and it'll still work great. So if you're low on lava, then you can definitely do that. Once that's all in, we need to connect it up to power. As a reminder, this thing uses 36,000 stress units, so honestly, I would recommend a steam engine before building this, because otherwise you need to build like 10 max size windmills or something stupid, and that's not fun for anyone. To power it, we're going to need to come to the back here and get in our rotation speed controller and large cog. If you're already running this at 256 RPM, then you could just hook it up to one of these things, but I always like to have my farms have a rotation speed controller, because sometimes things break and you'd rather the rotation speed controller break because you know where it is. To put in our rotation speed controller, we're going to place it in here at the end of this belt and a large cogwheel on top. Set the speed of this to 256 RPM. It doesn't matter the direction because we're probably going to need to change it anyway. Once we connect it up to power, you should see stuff is moving. For me though, everything's moving backwards. The things to check are if this belt is going away from this diagonal belt, then you're going to need to invert this rotation speed controller. If that's the case, then invert it and you should see those belts going the correct way and cobble traversing them. As I mentioned, we should see cobble dropping out here, going up onto this belt and going into our smart chutes. Our crushing wheel should be crushing our cobblestone into gravel, and then our gravel should be dropping down and then starting to be washed by our encased fan. That does look like it's happening for me, which is great. We should then see first flint probably go onto this depot, into this basin, and start getting pressed exactly. And then we'll also see in a few seconds, ooh, this is something I missed, good thing we're doing this. We should see in a few seconds iron nuggets drop out onto here. For some reason, I have a bunch of cobblestone everywhere, so let's just get rid of that. I think that was from a different thing that was happening, I don't know. But yeah, as you can see, our iron nuggets are waiting for this belt to start moving. This belt isn't powered though, and that is because I missed something in here. It is a super easy fix. All we need to do is add a gearbox here. You can see that is spinning this way, which is the opposite way we want to go. So just throw in another gearbox, and then that belt should be going the correct direction. We should then see iron nuggets and cobblestone. Nope, iron nuggets in this basin. I don't know why cobblestone's in there, but you should see iron nuggets in there now. And once it speeds up to its full speed, iron nuggets should be in here as well as andesite. You should see that this mixing station is going to be running full time, full speed, and then this one is probably going to be running at half speed. That is what I would expect when you're running this. Once we confirm that both of these are in fact working, which I suspect we'll see in a second, we can get in our final kind of item storage output system. For us, it's just a barrel, which isn't too helpful or handy. Oh, there we go. So I would absolutely recommend upgrading this, but since it's Create 6, you should just use your Create 6 storage system. To get in our output, we're just going to add a barrel and a funnel here, and we should see items just going straight into there. And as you can see, we are in fact doing that. One thing to note, if this iron ingot basin has a spout going out on this side, just right click it with a wrench and it will stop doing that. It sometimes does it because it wants to be different and cool, but it's not, so make sure that's happening. And then we'll have iron out on this way as well. And just as a reminder, this thing produces 7,200 andesite alloy and 700 iron ingots, so it's kind of a combo farm. 700 iron ingots an hour as a byproduct is pretty elite. I hope you all have enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you all enjoyed the build. If you did, be sure to like the video, check out some of my other tutorials. I'll link it on the top right of the screen now, and make sure you subscribe. But that's going to be all for this one. If you enjoyed it, definitely let me know down in the comments, and I will see you all in the next one.